Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Mavs Moneyball After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe, your editors at Mavs Moneyball, joining you for another recap pod. And, Dallas Mavericks just defeated the Detroit Pistons 111-105. Luka Doncic returned. It was Seats for Soldiers nights. Luka scored 53, and the Mavericks won. Should we just, hang up and have the shortest podcast in history? Josh, how are you?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll just say that it's a good thing the Mavericks won because it would not have been a good time online if the Mavericks.
I wrote about it anyway because I don't feel good. I'm starting to feel ill. I don't know what it is. Probably
it's winter. It's January in Texas.
and that sort of, and I wrote one up, I wrote a pretty lengthy, 450 word recap because the game was actually had a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
But I can't stress to people enough how fucking terrible the Pistons are. And it's one thing if you're all right, every team plays down and it's this would have been a really nice convincing win. And they got up 10-0 and the Pistons actually outscored them the rest of the way. Only the Mavericks had enough, and they had enough because Luka is good, and that's about it. This was just, it sounds sassy, but Spencer Dinwiddie scored all of his points in the fourth quarter. They didn't that is good. But until the fourth quarter, they had no other players in double digits, and it's this was the first game where I thought, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong because I don't read into body language too much. Luka's body language was not happy in this game.
There were a lot of players not happy. I think Nick from Locked On and Cato said that THJ after a timeout ripped his jersey and slammed a chair.
Well, he could afford to make a layup. Some of the shit that he's doing, THJ in specific, where it's
I think he's pissed at himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a weird. Yeah. I want to run this off you. And I know this wasn't a game where, you did the recap, and usually when you do the recap, you're watching all the games. I'm not trying to say it, but usually when you do the recap, you are super locked in, which is really impressive because especially when you're in the doldrums of the season. I want to bounce this off you then. There's a lot being made online about the scoring disparity and Luka scoring 53 and the next having 12 and then no one else in double figures. But, obviously Tim and Spencer had horrendous games overall.
Mm-hmm.
It's good that Tim turned it on in the fourth quarter, but, they combined to go 1 of 12 from 3. And that was obviously really bad. But I'm looking at, I was kind of just in the flow of the Luka game. There was some of it that was because everyone would just kept screaming, get loot. Why doesn't, Luka doesn't have anyone, like, come on, upgrade this roster, all the stuff that we've heard all season and stuff that we've been saying. But watching this game, it was kind of like, I don't know, because Luka was just taking all the shots. Like look at some of the shots. Like Dorian had 5, Powell had 4, Bullock had 5, McGee had 5, like Green had 4. It's not like all these, again. Caveat.
Well, it's big. It's big. I'll do it myself. Like angry Thanos at the end of Avengers, like shit going on. And I want to. I get really frustrated when I can tell someone hasn't watched a Mavs game and they have criticism of what Luka does. He scored 18 points in the first quarter because he scored 24 points in the first quarter because no one else could hit a shot for the first 9 minutes.
Yep.
Like that. I'm sorry. These are professional athletes. And this game, like I'm kind of quietly losing it because I hate the trade deadline. And granted, understanding that like none of us have any say in this, I lose my mind when I get mentions of people being like, well, we can't trade. Then they list 4 players. And I'm just like, folks, what about these players makes you that excited? And this was it, like, for this to happen after a day of discourse like that is perfect. Because the kind of misses that, like, Dorian just misses wide open looks. I'm sorry. Dorian is a product of Luka Doncic being good and anybody, at least on the offensive end. And I don't really agree with any other take otherwise, because his 3-point percentage rose 8 points when Luka joined the team, and it never went back down because he gets some of the most wide open looks night after night after night. If you're not hitting those, you shouldn't be in the league. And so, yeah, I'm again, I don't feel good. So like, this is just making me like a little bit crazy because I want them to beat the pants off someone. Like Luka was 12 of 13 from 2-point range. Does anyone understand how fucking crazy that is? His shot chart was not a bunch of stuff at the rim either. He was hitting mid-range. And it's like the whole meme of the thing down at Deep Elm where it's a guy being, send help. Like, it's true. It's super annoying. Like the fact that JaVale McGee was the second leading scorer for a significant portion of this game is just really weird.
Yeah, I feel you, and I don't want to disagree with you too much. I just felt like there were certain points where I was like, well, like the Pistons were just giving up a layup. Like I was just kind of like, well, yeah, like this is the right outcome. Like why should Luka even pass it when he's getting like, I mean, he was just getting good look after good look at the rim that I'm like, I almost, like, do I blame Josh Green for only scoring 8 points when he shot the ball 4 times and I don't feel like he passed up too many open looks? Like, that's the kind of part where I'm like, Reggie had Reggie made 3 of 5 from 3. So, like, again, I understand what you're saying. It's pretty crazy to see this kind of discrepancy. And they have to figure out a way to lessen the load, and they have to figure out a way to win games comfortably without Luka looking like Superman. It just kind of, in the flow of this game, it kind of felt like I was like, this doesn't feel like Luka on an island. This just feels like the Pistons are so bad that Luka doesn't even really need to pass it because he's getting whatever he wants. But again, Dinwiddie was bad. He had cooked legs from playing 80.
Yeah, he looked tired. He was like giving up the ball early and wasn't looking to attack, which is, the fact that he turned it on in the fourth quarter.
I mean, that saved the game.
I probably should have wrote about this, and I'm pretty tough on Dinwiddie sometimes, largely because I feel like when he disappears, he just really disappears. And for him to do what he did in the fourth was nice. It was helpful.
Yeah. Tim is bad though, and probably need a larger conversation on Tim eventually, because dude has had one good game in the last almost month. Like January 10th against the Clippers was his last like pretty solid shooting game, and since then he's been kind of herky-jerky. He had a decent game against Clippers, but they lost.
Yeah.
But I mean, the dude is 20, I'm looking at it, 26. So he's taken 26 threes in his last 4 games. And he's made 5 of them. Yeah, he's 5 of 26.
we're in one of his downswings.
Yeah, it's been really bad. And it's on, I mean, it's honestly amazing. The Mavericks are 2-2 in those 4 games. Like that's
right. There's a lot of metrics we've seen that
where
tie him. Yeah.
Tie him to, like, he has to shoot well for them to win, and that was what it was like for a while there. So we'll see. This was a game that was kind of like, it's kind of perfect, this game, because it was a game where, like, everyone that's pretty glass half empty on this team, you got meat to chew on. Like, you got your red meat, and then people that are optimistic about this team, you think, hey, they won, they pulled it out. Oh, Luka scored 50. Like, oh, look how fun it is that Luka's calling out that Detroit assistant. Like, there was enough on each side to kind of be satisfied with this game, like, to back up your viewpoint on this team, which is kind of what it feels like every single game this team plays. It feels like they do that. They give ammo to both sides of the debate over how good this team is.
I mean, I don't, my sort of takeaway from most people is I don't think anyone thinks this team is very good. I think people are like, you just don't count out Luka in a game where, and that's that's a thing. That's a real thing. And I tend to side with that and understand it 100%. It's just, I mean, they basically need to go, including this game, they needed to go 2 and 3 to get to the the trade deadline above 500. And if they do, so that giving them a little bit of cushion is pretty helpful, because they have a tough schedule ahead. We've talked about this for a while.
The season, this is the season. In the next, like, every game after this one for about the next week and a half, like, it's the
2 national TV games, one of them against the Clippers, one of them against the Warriors, 5 on the road for a team that it has like a 30 wins 1 out of every 3 on the road.
Yeah, so not looking good there.
Well, but they could still come through this and do what I suggested. It's like, what does that say about the team? And I don't want them to do this. I do not want them to lose. I think I've been pretty good about not calling for tanking, despite what my brain will flash to at certain points in the season. It's just, this team could use such an influx of talent, and they have no means of acquiring it. I am like let's pivot away from this game a little bit, because I want to talk about some of the trade, because it's just, like, Bojan Bogdanovic played an incredible game, just the classic I'm going to torch the Mavs, please come get me game. And if they were to do something like that, i.e. send a first round pick and do whatever to get him, we should storm the American Airlines Center, because it would be I like Bojan, but he does not move the needle. Like, him and Luka is a defensive court. Like, what are we? You just can't.
I like Bojan 4 years ago when the Mavericks had cap space. That's
right, and they didn't even try.
Yeah.
And so I as I look ahead, this trade deadline just makes me really uncomfortable. We're at the point, 9 days out, where every team is demanding a first round pick for their player. Like, the way, and frankly, like Shams, please edit Shams. I cannot with he finds new ways to massacre the English language. It's so impressive. And the fact that somebody's interested in Dorian Finney-Smith, which the Jazz are, I heard this almost a week ago, and who cares? Like, I'm not going to report anything, but it's out there in the wild now. And then Tim McMahon says the Mavericks are not parting with him. It's just this weird, it's like, if the undrafted small forward who scores 8.5 points and grabs 4.5 rebounds a game is that important to what you do as a team, it's such an underlying problem with the talent you have on the team. Dorian is great. Dorian would be the finishing touch piece for a number of top of the East, top of the West teams.
And I think that's why there's a lot of chatter about him.
But none of those teams have the assets to get him for what the Mavericks should. Like, the Mavericks, let me be clear. I think the Mavericks should demand something for him. It's just the market is, number one, I've never had a good sense of the market. Number two, it's all out of whack with what Tim Connolly gave up with the Wolves to go get Gobert. So it feels weird. And I don't want and McMahon even kind of alluded to this. The Mavericks don't want to do anything to put themselves out of a play for doing something this summer or later. But the fact that, once again, we're relying on the thinnest possible margin of team building. It drives me nuts. Now they have no other choice. And part of this is on me for hoping for different, but damn it, I hate it.
Well, they do have another choice, but they're not going to make it because I understand why. I mean, they could, if they wanted draft picks, they could get some draft picks. They would have to take a step back this season. So that is a choice they can make, but they're not going to make it. And we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of why or why not. With Luka on the roster, it's probably it would be really difficult to explain to him, like, hey, you guys are a game away.
He's like, this is your problem. You guys go do this. And that is the sort of thing that that's where we're coming back to our mantra for 4 years now, which is like, he's going to figure out and be mad. So could we please stop doing things to make him mad?
Yeah. So, they could go down that route, but we both know that they're not. What's the thing about, when was the last time the Mavericks traded for a first round pick? Like,
I think it was 2005 or 2003.
The Devin Harris pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just not going to do that. Fans are going to want them. Like, there's obviously a very vocal part of the fan base that wants to do that. And part of me understands why. And there's like a lot of logic to it, but they're not going to do that. So otherwise it's like, it's like you said, do they trade a first rounder for Bojan, who maybe gets them closer to the 5th or the 4th seed, but then now you're down a pick when picks are super valuable in terms of, like, you need a lot of them to move the needle.
Yeah.
And like, if you trade for Bojan now, does that mean, like, hey, if Zach LaVine is available this summer, are you out of that race? I'm not trying to say whether the Mavericks should do it or not, but I'm just like using an example. Like, if you trade a first rounder for a marginal upgrade now, there could be a scenario where this summer someone's available and another team has 3 picks to offer and you have 2, and it's like, then you're worried about, like, you're spinning the wheels a little bit. And Bojan's 34 and Luka's 23, and it's like, where do you go from there? And I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's the thing we talked about this, or at least this was kind of some discourse online. I think what's really tough about talking about this Mavericks team is that so many of these guys have been on the team for so long.
Yep.
That there's an emotional attachment. And I'm sure it's not just fans. Like, I'm sure people in that front office have emotional attachments to Finney-Smith and Powell and Maxey and some of these guys that have been on the team for a long time. And you think about, like, the success stories that Finney-Smith and Powell are, like, those are player development wins that the Mavericks can be like, yeah, we helped do this. Like, and they should be proud of that. Because who would have thought that those two guys could be, those guys and Maxey, like, when those guys first got on this roster, did anyone think those guys were going to be, like, contributors to a playoff team? And people can poke holes at how big of contributors there are, like, especially people like to use that with Powell, but, like, the fact remains he's helped this team win games when they've been a playoff team. So I get it. At the other end of the spectrum, they're the 7th oldest team in the NBA, and Dorian and Reggie and Powell and Maxey and Tim are all either 30 or they're 29, about to turn 30. And when Luka's 28, like, those guys aren't going to be around. Like, if those guys are around, then we got some problems. But, like, those guys are going to be 34 or 35. Like,
I mean, if Luka, like, let's be clear, Luka has 4 years left on his contract, and really only 2.5 of them are real. Like, the timetable just grows shorter. So it's like, if Dorian Finney-Smith, who I think he's very valuable to what this team does, but he strikes me as like the Bob Covington of a couple years ago, who was going for all these things, and the guy just wasn't who people he had passed that point where he was as good as people thought, and now he's like the 4th wing off the Clippers bench. And so it's just like, I hate to be this ruthless about it, but if you have an option to improve your team, grow younger, do something, and still probably maintain, because these guys don't make that much of a difference to the Mavs margins. Like, maybe play to play, there's stuff like Josh Green and Luka's, like, 2-man plus minus is pretty absurd, but I just basketball is about putting points in the hoop, and the Mavericks don't have anybody that can do it except for him and Spencer.
We're just nearing the point where, like, they've been hanging on to this, like, 2018, 2019 roster
Mhm.
And whether they like it or not, they're gonna have to make a choice. And they have to, like, it's natural. It's not like trying to say Dorian sucks or Powell sucks or these guys suck. Like Luka's 23, like you cannot keep him with these guys while they're 35. Like when Luka's 28, like you think the expectations now for him in terms of like winning and going deep into the playoffs now, like once he's 28, that's the conversation of like, hey, well, that's when MJ won. That's when LeBron won. Like that's when it's like, okay, a player as good as Luka needs to be every season. The expectation needs to be I'm in the NBA finals or I'm winning the trophy. And like that's what it was like for LeBron when he got to that age. That's what it's like for him. Like all the greatest players of all time. Like once you start getting to that age, it's like it's done. Like it's done to no more like, hey, this Western Conference Finals trip was like so fun.
Yep.
Like that part is over.
Well,
So
Luka's quite reasonably there now because he's a top 5 player in the NBA.
Right.
And that's
they just have to they're at a crossroads. Like they're gonna have to change their roster up eventually, right? And they need to figure it out. And I don't know if it's going to be this trade deadline, but I don't know. It's
soon. It's in the
weird.
next 6 months. Like it's going to happen in the first part of 2023 because they just have to. They just have to.
Yeah.
And that's not a thing to be, I sound very frustrated because once again, I don't feel good. And it's just like, I just want them to beat the crap out of a bad team. And they
were about to, and it just turned around.
I mean, I'm looking at the Mavs win losses, and you go back, the Miami win was excellent. And then
the Phoenix win was nice. Like
they beat Houston just before New Year. The Phoenix one was important, but I mean, I'm talking like a thorough, we are the better team.
Okay.
And that's like, because their point differential, this game might actually help their point differential.
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't think they've done one of those games. They beat New Orleans, but New Orleans didn't have Zion or Brandon Ingram.
They have a point. They have a 0.3 positive point differential, which, if you're judging by point differential in the West, means they're like the 9th seed. Like this stuff comes out in the wash over enough time. Just so we understand, like they and that's, maybe they'll get it together. Maybe it's just this next stretch has me worried. And I wouldn't have thought that,
Yeah. Well, if there's a team that needs 2 days off, it's definitely this team. So maybe Spencer gets his legs back. Maybe Christian Wood comes back. Cause I think,
is it weird that I forget about him? Like I don't like does he matter?
I think it's because
for that
their defense has been so bad, and like I know his defense has been improved in bits and pieces, but
he's better than having to play McGee. McGee goes out there and actually gives positive minutes. So Kid starts him in the second half, and
he was so bad in that third quarter.
Just gives it all up, and he's never seen it. Like, because he actually did okay in the second. It wasn't great, but you don't need great. You need not awful. Compared to Wood, McGee is a block hunting mofo. I hate that. Anyway,
I know, but
let's see here. We got a number. We have 2 days off, and the wonderful people that write for us have a ton. Like, well, you have 2 posts that are coming in the next couple of days. Ben wrote a post that I'm going to have to edit and schedule tonight. He did like I'm going to go look at the name of the story because it just made me laugh out loud. And I didn't even know he was doing this. It says, no, let's see here. Where did it go here? The state of the Dallas Mavericks season per an AI chatbot.
Yeah, it's pretty. He had some fun over the weekend, and he was just like, "I'm going to make it a post." And we're like, "Thank you."
We got like 5 stories in the hopper. This is a pain in the ass. No, I mean that in the best way possible. It's always good to like come to Mavs Moneyball the next 2 days because you're going to have like 7 things to read in the off days. All right, I see my dog pouncing on the couch, which worries me because that means she's shredding something.
Let's get out.
I'm gonna go take care of that, and then maybe start the live room, and we'll figure out what's up. Thanks so much for hanging out, Josh. Anything else?
No, that's it. Go get your dog.
All right. That's right. All right, guys. Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe, Mavs Moneyball After Dark. We'll talk with you soon. Bye, guys.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.